As is a creative person, no idea what he's going to say, but usually it's fun. And so, Alf, the floor is yours, and meet the wonderful people of Nurope.
Thank you. Nice to see some of you again. Nice to see some of you the first time. As my dear friend and colleague said, my name is Alf again, and I'm the chair of organization management at Akademi. I used to be professor of innovation and entrepreneurship at the Royal Institute of Technology way back when. And spend my days these times deconstructing discourses of creativity. Sometimes I do this for companies and then they pay me money to annoy them. Sometimes I just talk to smart people who don't pay me money to annoy them, so I feel more free to annoy them and provoke them. I am going to annoy and provoke you, or at least I'm going to try to. I never know whether I'll succeed, but as Nina says, or Nina implicated, it is my approach to the notion of the social sciences that we need to explore mainly the boundaries of the fields we work in, explore why we so easily slip into comfortable thought positions, why we so easily accept frameworks. So I'll say to you, as I say to almost every crowd I talk to, I will not talk about how great creativity is, because that speech needs to be held never ever again. If there is a single human being in the Western Hemisphere who hasn't heard the "oh, isn't creativity good and fun and wonderful," I would really like to meet them. It would be a pleasure and a privilege to meet somebody who hasn't been exposed to this. A lot of the work I do actually has to do with challenging creativity, asking questions whether now enamorment with creativity isn't actually causing more problems than solutions, and to see what can be done if we challenge and push notions of creativity, culture and economy. So, when Bengt and Nina and Kim asked me to come speak, they pointed out that you are talking about creativity and crisis, which of course lies very much at the heart of what I do. I ask almost daily about the crisis of creativity, but also currently I of course work a lot with the notion what kind of novel creativities, other creativities, different creativities are needed in an age of crisis. I plan to talk for about 45 minutes, no more, because my presentation today, even though I often work in highly theoretical mode, will not be very theoretical. I assumed, looking at the time, looking at the place, that even though we could have a lot of fun talking about people like Alain Badiou, for instance, who is a philosopher very dear to me at the moment, I thought it would be more stimulating to invigorate your dinner discussions by throwing out a few provocations regarding the standing of the creative economy and the cultural economy in the current socio-economic landscape. But I will also come to a few points I've had in which I believe creativity and the notion of creative economies and creative possibilities in economy can be pushed a little further. So, here goes nothing, as they say. We are very clearly living in the age of the deluge. This is Joseph Turner, one of the preeminent 19th century British watercolorists, painting the morning after the deluge, which has always been very dear to me. We are very much aware about the fact that our economy, and thus our world, is in a state after the deluge. I am in business and management, forgive me for this, but it is actually a very good time to be in business and management, since we are now seeing upheavals of a form we haven't seen basically ever. Looking at productivity, which is one of those fun things business people do, we have never, in the economy, ever, as long as we've measured it, seen greater drops than right now. We talk a lot about how the stock market's doing and how currencies are doing, but these are actually not very interesting to a person who's interested in how the economy and how the world is doing. The fact that productivity, what people actually do, what kind of stuff people actually try to put out, has never dipped as quickly as they have done during the last 12 months. This fascinates me, because it points to changes in society that might actually be very beneficial, might actually point towards an age after the age of excess, but also because they point to questions we need to ask ourselves about what productivity, what creating actually means. We live in an age, even though we tout that we have never been in a more creative age, which is actually starting to produce less and less. This is interesting. We live in an age after a enormous change in the markets. A change many of us think is for the best, the end of the financialized economy and so on, but which still will have ramifications, but it's very, very difficult to see at the moment. 18 months ago, if you wanted to ship a container full of stuff, whatever, artworks, teddy bears, guns, it didn't matter. If you want to ship a container from Singapore to London, it costs you approximately $1,000 plus gas. Today that exact same cost is $0. Yes, shipping at the moment is done at the very bare costs of gas. And this points not only to the fact that shipping business is going really, really badly. It points to a very distinct change in what we see as possible to do. We're living in an age which might actually be anti-global in the sense that globalization might soon become an impossibility. Prices don't go down to zero because shipping companies are nice. Prices are going down to zero because shipping companies are going bankrupt. The next airlines go bankrupt. Next after that, train lines may go bankrupt. We might actually see, rather than the fabulous expanding world which we were trained to believe in, we might actually see a radically contracting world. A world in which we do less, move less, create less. And this might be a good thing. I start with these dire things after the deluge. Not because I want to be alarmist, even though that's a lot of fun as well, but because I want to ask, what exactly should we understand with the very notion of creation today, particularly when connected to, somehow, the notion of an economized world. And I want to do it by starting with the first provocation, and point out creativity was, of course, what got us into this whole mess to begin with. Creativity created the crisis. Creativity might be one of the main things that actually put us in this mess. We have to remember, of course, that creativity, we are trained to think of creativity as a good thing. It's really difficult to go into any kind of situation and say, well, listen, this creativity, it ain't all that. Because we're trained, creativity is good, creativity is pure, creativity is always the holy thing. But looking at the investment banks, actually messed us up. It wasn't their lack of creativity that created the problem, it was their enormous ingenuity. It was their innovative capability. It was the fact that if you look at the derivatives created, the financialized products, these are masterpieces of human ingenuity. Yes, they were fucked up. Yes, they created enormous losses. Yes, they had no connection to reality. But you can't claim they weren't creative. Have you seen a CDO cubed? You know what the CDO is to begin with? Who here knows what the CDO is? A collateralized debt obligation. Basically, a collateralized debt obligation works like this. This was one of the things that got us into this mess. Let's assume all of us are now, just at this moment, buying a house.